colleagues, and welcome to the session about soft skills and architects. Thank you for choosing to spend this slot with me and with the session. I'm glad that you're here and on such a deep dive, technically focused conference. There are people that are interested in this topic. I also want to thank the organizers that chose this session to be included in the program. What was the driver for me to propose such a session at this and also other conferences? The thing is that usually in the career of the developer comes one moment where after getting to senior level and spending some more time there, it's a common understanding that the developer should choose which way to go. One way is to go to doing team leadership, and after that project management, and then program manager, and stuff like this, which is considered the, let's say, management type of work and dealing with a lot of people and writing emails and no more writing code, stuff like this. And there is the other option to continue diving in technology and pursue the role of an architect. What I see is the misunderstanding that actually the architects, the software architects, are deeply technical people that also do deeply technical work and continue working mainly with computers, but not that much with people. So actually I challenge this. This is what I see. And what I understand that happens. I think this is wrong. And because of this, I decided to do this session in order to raise awareness, on one hand, among people that are developers and that are thinking about becoming a software architect, and on the other hand, on people that are already doing software architecture as a role, project managers and people that are responsible for the talent development and career development of other people, to raise awareness maybe about things that would help those people they're responsible for their successful growth as a developer, as a software architect. So my plan, I have a clicker. Sorry, it doesn't change. Okay. So the plan for my session today is first to touch base on the perspective. So what is my perspective? Maybe check a little bit about your perspective, from what position I have my observations. Then the second topic is to answer the question of the title, which is, do architects need soft skills? But it's obvious that I didn't come here to actually convince you that they don't. So actually it's not about do they need, but why they do need soft skills. Then get a little bit deeper into actually what soft skills make the most sense for software architects. And the last one is to touch base on some, let's say, maybe shortcuts on acquiring these skills. The main goal is to, as I said, raise awareness of about the need to focus on soft skills, even within software architecture roles, and not to, of course, within 30 minutes to provide a way how to do it. Okay, let's check. It works. Okay, so perspectives. My perspective. At school, I started programming like 5th or 6th grade, then continued with informatics in high school, went to Olympiads, was very active. Then at university, I did computer science. And for about 20 years now, I've been doing things with software development. My professional career started as a software developer. Then I've been doing also business analysis and consulting and leading deployment teams on site, on the implementation teams on site on big clients. Then I went through software architecture. I've been software architect, project manager, program manager. So basically more or less everything within the palette of different roles that happen in the software development lifecycle. And currently, I combine, actually for maybe more than 10 years already, I combine both technical and business responsibilities. I work for a company called Musalasoft, which is almost 500 people software services company. We work for clients like IBM, VMware, Deutsche Telekom, Test Systems, Automotives, big multinationals, and we do long-term relations, and we do a lot of complex and also innovative software development projects for them. So I'm responsible for the strategic clients, which means that I'm responsible for the business relation, but also with program management of their projects. So I have operational and technical responsibilities in this way, and also I'm responsible for the business development of the company, which is more or less the sales part. So this is my perspective, and yes, both in my, so I've done the role of software architect for years, and I also work on a daily basis with software architects within our company and within our customers. And I'm talking about both projects like 10 people and projects that involve more than 100 of people and multi-year duration. So that's my perspective. I'll be interested to understand within the audience what is your perspective. So could you please raise a hand if your current role you would best describe as software developer? Okay, almost half, thanks. Anything else apart from software architect and developer? Okay, so we have maybe management people, QA people. And then the last one, actually, how many of you have been on an architect position, but not as like responsibilities being the architect of the system within the project, but as a designated architect? Great, great. Please, those 5 of you, don't leave my session till the end. I will need you at the end. Okay, so why the architects need soft skills? There is something that somebody called, I couldn't find who originated, that's why I didn't quote it, something called the technical glass ceiling. So basically it's about when, as I said, people progress within the development career, there comes a moment where they need to leave the bubble of the technical surroundings and the technical teams that they're working, and they need to start interfacing with much more business people, with much more project managers, or become project managers, and basically change their focus from technology to something else. So one of the misunderstandings, or one of the things that I challenge, is that the software architect actually is above this glass ceiling. So actually being a software architect puts you in this group of people that need to care about much more things than just technical architecture about this solution or this product or something like this. And it is considered that basically this step at this moment is the hardest in the career of a software developer. And a lot of things around this hardship come from the soft skills that need to be acquired. So, a software architect, what would be the expected technical responsibilities? Many of you raised your hand for software development roles. So I guess at least half of those people actually did also software architecture tasks. So maybe this is understandable. Yes, it depends if the company you work on is focusing on services, projects, delivery, products, or it is industry and IT, internal IT. But nevertheless, it's understandable. The architect is responsible for the technical architecture, for the components of the platform, like what application server, how many different things we need to do, for example, for performance optimization or for high availability, how we should technically actually create, make sure that the system will be working okay. So this is something that is totally straightforward as a responsibility. Choosing specific platforms. Should we do it with WebSphere application server or Oracle or Red Hat's application server or something else? Also choosing the tools for software development. The architect is the technical guy that is trusted, that they can, based on the technologies that are needed, based on the client needs and the skills of the developers, to provide a tool set that will enable as effective as possible work of the team. Also for automated testing, not only for software development. Also, it is understood that within the project, the software architect is the one that regularly does technical reviews or audits and advises if something has started to go in a wrong direction. Other things. The software architect is normally expected to be sharing knowledge. So it is the guy within the team or in the project that that needs to advise people on new technologies that are new for the specific team member, or to share knowledge about something that nobody used and should be introduced in the project. Consulting and solving complex problems. This is also clear. Again, this is the person that if something escalates to the top, this is the guy that you would rely to find a solution for complex technical problems. He's the guy that also cares about good practices and clean code and things like this. He's the guy that, or she, of course, is being in close collaboration with DevOps, continuous integration guys, automated testers, because everything comes together. So during the development process, and of course at the end on the client side. Also, this is the guy as knowledgeable as possible, so that he or she can do as effective as possibly research and experimenting with new platforms and tools. So that is the understandable part, and everybody, I believe, agrees that those are the things that architects do. Imagine what? When you become a designated architect within a company, actually all those things that you maybe did as a technical lead within your projects, being the most senior guy and playing this role within a project, then this is multiplied by n. So you start being responsible for, instead of one project, you start being responsible for n projects. Or your project ceases to exist. So it's your projects already. So you start being responsible, as I said, for multiple projects. This means multiple teams. This also means multiple products and clients, more importantly, and in general, n times more stakeholders, which at the end of the day are people. So all those things that we discussed, times n. What else changes? The software architect gets into a group of people who need to care about the big picture. So it's no more the case that the decisions are made mainly within the software team, no matter what the methodology is, a Scrum team or something else, and maybe discussing with some project manager. But now the software architect is a stakeholder in delivering the whole solution and making the client happy and achieving the business results of the client. So the new perspective is maybe the most important thing, the taking care about the big picture within the relation between the company you're working with and the client. And the client may be an internal client if it's a huge organization. Sorry. So the software architect starts to need to care about things like budgets and plans and business deadlines. This is something that within a technical team only, and taking architecture responsibilities is something that never happens, or almost never. Also, instead of, if you're in a technical team, a software architect, and if you like what you do and you love technology, you would care for things to be done the right way. And actually, this is another perception, that the architect always needs to do the things the right way, with the right approach, with the right architecture, with investing in quality code and good and maintainable stuff, looking at the long term, because this thing should be done in a way that in 2-3 years somebody else will be happy to maintain it, for example. But guess what? It's not always the case. So actually, being part again of the big picture, the software architect needs to start caring about what fits the existing case. So I have an example here. So currently we work for a customer that is implementing big data solution, and everything has been going for quite a long time. The infrastructure is set up, and the first implementations of use cases of the big data, the data lake, are being done. And we are striving to do the things the right way, so that they are sustainable in time, done the right way, etc. But what happens? Actually, due to regulations that require this customer to provide the information earlier than expected, we need to shrink the time of the project. So at this moment, I would never call it like do it quick and dirty, but just to understand the ultimate direction. At some point, the whole project would not make any sense if we don't meet this deadline. So the software architect, looking long term and taking care of doing a good job, should actually consider that in such cases you need to make a compromise, and you should be understanding that that's the normal thing if you are part of, as I said, the big picture. So those are things that are not exactly let's say nice, or things that you can imagine, but that's life. I mean, and it's absolutely pragmatic. Another thing, the software architect no longer cares about cool new technologies and cares about technologies that should fit our needs. Specifically, the new thing is our business needs. So playing with new technologies is great, but the pragmatic need for taking care about business need is something that is very important and happens always. Another thing, the software architect is also part of the team that should take care of the necessary evil, the balancing the triangle of time, quality, and quantity. And again, you need to make compromises, and those are things that you need to negotiate with different people. The software architect is the one that should be putting a stress on having at least the necessary minimum of documentation for all teams that he's working with. This is not the best thing to discuss with developers. I don't know what your impressions are. I see very often cases where a development team in the beginning of the project is complaining totally that the client, that they didn't provide requirements, they don't have any documentation, or we're taking over maintenance of a new project, there is no documentation, so it's complaining, which is understandable, it's bad. But then 3 months later or 6 months later, when the team needs to take care of the guys 2 years after them, they couldn't care less about doing the right documentation, or at least a minimum up-to-date, maintaining up-to-date minimum size, minimum amount, I'm missing the right word, of documentation. So the architect should actually be part of the guys that will be imposing this and putting this as a requirement for the developers. And this is again communication. In some cases, you have a problem or a need for a big system, and you come up with 1, 2, 3 different versions of implementation, architecture, technologies, etc. But at the end of the day, especially if you're an architect within a big organization and working with internal teams, very often you need to conform to the availabilities that you have. So you have an internal team, you have maybe a couple of vendors that you work with, and they're good, or they have resources and availabilities in those technologies. And those are not the ones that you see that are best. But again, That's the situation. So you need, and all this, what I'm saying is that this is part of the architect's work, and this is part of, he's part of the guys that should be sending the message also to the colleagues that they work with, to the developers. And this is not exactly the good messenger's role. Okay, so let me check the time. I need to go quite quickly from here. Yes, need to comply also with client and project related limitations, often very subjective, like the client works with this database vendor, so we do it with this one. Fine, that's, we either do it this way or somebody else does it. As I said, imposing to the team technical decisions that are not exactly the best to hear from developers, and you need to take care to describe and to explain them. You've been on the other side of the fence for a long time, and now you need to explain them the rationale behind this. You need to be always up to date with what's next in technologies. So everybody knows that in our industry, that's the case anyway for developers. But when you're an architect, there's no more, you either do it and you're a good developer and informed developer, or you're just not that good. With architects, it's part of your job description. You need to do it regularly. It is expected that you are up to date with the new technologies, and also, you know, this T-shaped figure about having knowledge, some knowledge in the width, and also some deep knowledge in specific area. So what happens is that you need to broaden even more and get much more knowledge about different technologies that you might have skipped because you didn't like or you think that they're not good. Now you'll be part of doing comparative analysis between technologies, so you need to know. So this is something that is also different. Other responsibilities, sales and business. Architects are integral part of the sales, pre-sales, business development teams. So analyzing client requirements, it might be 3 pages or 103 pages, and you need to come up with a pragmatic view on it and to start your company, even in the pre-sales process, to start consulting through the questions and through the discussion. So you need to cope with understanding and being able to come up with proposals and also clarifications, etc. And taking the lead with the technology proposals. Technical proposals preparation for potential customers. Again, the technical part in most of the cases is done by software architects. Presenting of technical proposals to clients. Very often when you are presenting I'm talking mainly about bigger projects, so my experience, the things that I'm giving as examples are mainly from bigger projects. So at some point you need to present your proposal, and the software architect is the one that is the expert. Maybe you've seen this this video. If you haven't, I advise you to take a look. It's hilarious about the expert within a room with a business guy and a project manager guy. Also presenting and justification of proposal for internal projects and budget. So the software architect is the one that should drive innovation within the company. So proposals to change from SVN to Git or whatever, technical decisions should be justified to business people, should be justified to people that are non-technical. So communication, again, is very, very important. Estimations and project budgeting. Participation in total cost of ownership analysis. So we are proposing something to a client, but he's not selecting the provider based on how much it will take in the first 6 months or 12 months. They want to know how much it will cost them for the next 5 years and compare it. And it's very often that one provider that provides something less expensive in the beginning, in the long term, the client needs to pay much more. Participation in return on investment analysis, especially for big projects that change something. Like, for example, the customer goes from peer-to-peer integrations and spaghetti, etc., to service-oriented architecture with a huge change in general, if it's a big client. So for this, you need to support them also with return on investment analysis, and especially in such technical business, but very technical projects, the architect is also the one that should be able to come up with his contribution to doing those analyses. And yes, the client, you are not all anymore with the group, again, the technical, within the technical bubble, where the client is always wrong, if it has been. So in summary, why architects need soft skills? When you become a software architect, the expected and normal, understandable technical responsibilities are around, but not for one project, but for multiple projects. This comes with multiple different stakeholders you need to take care of. New perspectives and priorities, you get new technical responsibilities as discussed, and also the responsibilities around sales and business. Okay, what soft skills specifically? Communication skills, writing and writing and adequate structuring of information. Technical people tend to not be that able to present their ideas and to take care of the reader, which to me, by the way, is a surprise, because I see very good technical guys that I've been working with, and if you are a good developer, you should be able to decompose tasks to smaller tasks and find solutions on this way, and they kind of don't do it when they just present something in a writing. Like, you can see paragraphs like this and sentences like this, so it's not readable, it's not understandable, it's not with the care to the people that are reading it. Graphical representation of concepts and ideas. One thing that is very important is for the architect to be able to present their ideas and thoughts with diagrams. Again, with caring about the person. I can give you one example. We had a tender, so we had a proposal for a customer. It was a big project, etc. So we won it, and like 3 or 6 months after that, we met with one person from the committee that was choosing the vendor, and he said, in your proposal, you had a very good diagram of the architecture. It's the only one that I saw from all the vendors that I understood. And I believe that this is my thing, and we chose you. So not the best one, not the one of the top, the only one that he understood. And we're talking about a big project, big money, etc. So being able to pass the messages that you want to pass to the people reading your thoughts through diagrams and imaging is very important. Presenting, as we said, being part of teams that present to customers, negotiating and convincing. Again, I can give you an example. It's not about only business negotiations. The software architects don't need to do this. But for example, I'm with a client, and we are in one of their internal meetings. So a software architect and the CEO are discussing. The software architect is trying to convince him that they need to spend a certain amount of time for refactoring. And they're a product company. And they're spending like 15 minutes, and nobody understands the other. Although the CEO, it was CTO or CEO, is a technical guy. You need to speak. When you want to convince somebody, you need to put yourself in his shoes and pass messages that will speak to him and that will make sense to him. So instead of saying we need to do refactoring, we need to change this or that, you need to speak with the terms that the CEO understands. You can, for example, take a look at what will be the business consequences if we don't do this refactoring. So we'll do it, for example, quick and dirty now, and then in 3 months, where the next customer comes, which is, for example, not with a linear structure, but with a tree structure, we will need to redo it again, and then we will spend, here we come to the point, we will spend 6 months of efforts, and if we do it now, we will spend 2 months. And this will speak to the CEO, and he will. So negotiating and convincing and being able to pass the right messages is something that is very much needed for the software architect. Effective email communication. Out of the blue, 5 minutes, great. Out of the blue, you get into a situation when, on one hand, you start to get much more emails. On the other hand, you start to communicate with people that are receiving hundreds of emails. So in order for your emails to be understood and mentioned, you need to have effective email communication. Via phone and video conferencing, also. Face-to-face communication. Effective knowledge sharing. Why? We talked about knowledge sharing in general, that has been done within projects, but now you need to care about much more people. So it's not about consulting this colleague or that colleague, it's about how you can structure workshops, what materials, what training paths, etc. So in order to be good, everything that I'm talking at the moment is how I think you would do good as a software architect, not that without those things you will not be a software architect. So in order to be effective, for example, in your knowledge sharing and knowledge acquisition for your team's role, you need to kind of know how to do it. And it's not exactly a technical thing. Time management and delegation. No more, in my project, I have my tasks, that's the list I work. You have ad hoc tasks that come to you, you're responsible for many projects, you become point of contact for a lot of things. So time management and delegation becomes crucial. Frequent context switching, exactly as I mentioned. Being pragmatic, self-critical, and transparent. This is not a skill, it's a virtue. So you would not do good, I think, as an architect if you are not pragmatic and self-critical and transparent, because within a team, somehow there might be cases where, okay, you did something wrong, but you don't want to agree you did something wrong, maybe, but at the moment you are the utmost level of technical decisions. So you shouldn't care about you should care about right. So if tomorrow something that I said today, I see that was not right, then we move on. And that's something that would be valued, not the fact that I made a mistake yesterday. Self-critical and transparent, as I said, and constant learning efforts. Actually, constant learning comes from spending time on this. And unless you have it as a habit or you have it as something that is on your agenda on a daily basis, it will not happen. Business skills. You need to understand how the business activities function in a company of the types that you are involved with, either a product company or services company or projects. You need to be aware about the IT, so it's not only soft skills, but soft skills and knowledge. IT organization at big enterprises. Usually software architects work also on big projects. IT organizations within big enterprises is a total new world. So it's, if you get in for the first time and you need to deal with it, you can just be so on. So you should start understanding how such things function. Business concepts, processes, and terms. As we said, RFIs, request for information, request for proposal, for example, those here, NDA, non-disclosure agreement, TCO, you will be working more and more with people that will be using this language and these terms, and you should understand what actually they mean. In summary, communication skills, personal skills and virtue, business skills and knowledge, according to me, are the important ones. So, the how. Okay, so we are done with time, so I'll try to finish in 3 minutes. First of all, what I think should be done is the person to understand that it's a must-have, it's not a nice-to-have. And no matter if it's a person on a mid-level software developer, yes, and actually the other point of this is that soft skills are universally needed for software guys, no matter if they will pursue this or that way. So it's a must-have, and you should put it as a high priority on your agenda. Start early in your career, prioritize but don't look for immediate quick results. Make yourself a plan and start to monitor it. If you don't measure it, you cannot manage it. Even if you don't have good results, just measure it, tick it somewhere, and it will help. Do it yourself versus get trained. There are a lot of trainings and workshops about soft skills. I don't think they're bad idea, but I think that you can get a lot even with self-training. What can be a hack? There are a lot of things that actually, instead of gaining good skills, if you just follow some rules, you would be much, much better in this area. This is with email communication, with face-to-face communications, meetings, writing and structuring information, time management. If you, I can say that if you follow a set of rules for each of those and maybe some others, you would, let's say, upgrade yourself in this direction at least 50%. And you can just dig in whatever of those areas and online and find a set of rules that make sense to you, just start implementing them. Another kind of hack, acquire the accessible skills and knowledge. Those are things that you can learn easily on your own. So you can just experiment, you can read online, how can you do graphical representations of concepts and ideas. You just open something that is up to you to make and look for examples. You yourself will understand which are the good and bad, and you will learn from examples. Get into the context of the other people, but deeply, like what the DevOps guys are doing, what the QS, they're around you. So especially in big projects, and especially when you need to handle a lot of projects, responsibilities on a lot of projects, you need to understand their context in detail. How automated testers are working, what's the focus of BAs, etc. Business financial terms, again, something that you can acquire very quickly just from some self-training. Sales, again. One important thing, get a mentor, a new one. So maybe you have a mentor, a technical one. I propose to you, you get a non-IT mentor. So maybe it might not be easy because you're not having a mentoring program in the company or something like this, but don't give up. Just go to someone from the business guys and ask him to be, or her to be a mentor. They don't get asked a lot, so most probably he or she will be happy. And try to understand from them things that are beyond the technical stuff that you're anyway working. Do pair programming with them. Just shadow them. While they're working, just sit with them from time to time to understand, be it marketing, sales, business guys, project managers, HRs. Make use of the guidance. Ask them to guide you what basic stuff you can read so that do it yourself could be easier. So you get some understanding and strive to receive regular feedback. Last slide, absorb knowledge effectively. Both with dedicated time and when you have spare time, like while driving or in the underground. This is just a list of things that I've been using for years. So for books, Blinkist, by the way, it's a German company. I don't know if you know it. It makes book summaries. So within 15 minutes, you get the main ideas of a book. So you select business books and you understand things about marketing, sales, for example, etc., in a very condensed way. Video trainings, I've been using Pluralsight almost since its beginning. There are a lot of non-technical things in Pluralsight. I don't know if for people that are using it. Safari books online, based on a monthly subscription, you get everything, basically everything that you might need to know. You can get it as a reference. And of course, full-blown courses with massive online training platforms like Coursera and EDX. As a summary, I believe it makes sense for you if you're on this road, or for your people, if you're responsible for people that will be growing to architects. Thank you very much for your attention. So my question to the colleagues, 4 or 5 colleagues that raised their hands during the question that were architects or are architects. Would you please raise your hand if there are at least 1 or 2 things that you significantly disagree with what I said about what's ahead of the software architects? So you disagree? Partially. Okay, so we have 20%, around 15 to 20% disagreement. So everybody else, don't trust me, trust the software architects that were in in the audience, and that kind of confirmed that those things are important. Any thoughts or any questions are welcome. We are out of time. Thanks again. Enjoy the conference.